What is going on, Dodger fans? Hope all the mothers out there had a great Mother's Day. It was my first as a husband, so I was shelling out a lot of money. But your Los Angeles Dodgers are 27-14, one game ahead of the San Diego Padres for first place in the NL West. The Incline Dodgers is brought to you by Fansided and Tick Pick. Well, we got Chris Camello and Jake Reiner in the house, and I want to kick it off with, I think, the biggest subject going on right now in Dodgers land. Roki Sasaki. A lot of hype with Roki Sasaki going into this offseason. The expectations were he was going to sign with the Dodgers. I always felt like that was a destiny waiting to happen. And I got to be honest, so far he's made 8 starts, and they've kind of been underwhelming. The biggest concern with me right now with Roki Sasaki is that 4-seam fastball. I was shocked to see on the data that his 4-seam fastball with a 10% swing and miss rate is the worst of all qualified starters in Major League Baseball, which is kind of a concern given the fact that in Japan, this was a guy who could throw 100 miles per hour consistently, at times topping out at 102 miles per hour. And now here he is with the Dodgers in year 1, at times throwing 94 to 96 miles per hour. His average fastball velocity is about 95.7 miles per hour. I know there was this whole thing with him this past offseason when teams were courting him. How are we going to make this fastball more effective? And so far, I know it's only 8 starts. This has been a huge problem for Roki Sasaki. And I don't know how you can count on a major league pitcher that doesn't have a good fastball. I'll go with Jake Reiner first to get kind of your overall thoughts on Roki Sasaki, and then we'll dive in a little bit more.
Yeah, I think he has been quite underwhelming so far. The thing that is most concerning about him to me is his control. 17 walks and 21 strikeouts this year. That is not a good strikeout to walk ratio. I don't need to tell you that. I mean, that's the thing that I see with him the most, is just his inability to command the strike zone. A lot of that has to do with his ineffective fastball. And so if he can't control the fastball, they're either waiting on that or they're spitting on his secondary pitches that aren't as enticing as they should be. But I do find it kind of comical that the entire offseason he was asking different teams about why his velocity was down on his fastball and what could they do to improve it. And the Dodgers said, we don't know, but we could make it slower. And that's pretty much exactly what's happened. I don't know. I mean, the whole idea that the Dodgers just not being able to capitalize on some of these starting pitchers they sign. There's been controversy about, can they keep pitchers healthy? They've not been able to do that. The bullpen is so injured. The starting rotation is so injured. So the fact that Sasaki's even available to pitch is a huge plus. I mean, the bar is pretty low right now in terms of what they will do with the starting rotation. I think at this point it is too early to kind of write off Sasaki or say there's a problem with him. I think he's still working through some things, but I think what is more concerning to me about the fastball velocity is just the overall command. He is just overworking himself out there and having these really high pitch count innings, and that is just not efficient at all. And then, of course, it has the effect later on with the bullpen.
Chris Camello, I want to get your thoughts on this whole Roki Sasaki saga that's starting to brew. Frustrations on your end?
Not quite. We had said coming into this year, and I was even saying I don't think it would be the worst idea to have him start in the minor leagues. I said this. I understand. Well, there's the business sense of it. You got to throw him out there. Fans want to see him. Kid's 23. You're putting him out there into the major leagues. There is going to be time of adjustment. This fastball thing was already a concern coming into this. We knew that. You know, people spit on the minor leagues. The fact of the matter is that's how you get better in a lot of cases. You need to be able to work your way through the system sometimes. I don't care if you're a sensation overseas. You know, that's like saying, hey, I threw for 4,000 yards at USC. Nobody gives a shit. Are you going to be able to do it at the NFL level? You know what I mean? I average 30 points a game at Duke. Nobody gives a shit. Are you going to be able to do it at the NBA level? Being able to transition from one league to another, and I'm not spitting on the Japanese leagues whatsoever. A lot of great guys have come out of there, a lot of great careers, et cetera, et cetera. Outside of the MLB, it's probably one of the most successful professional baseball leagues in the world. However, this is a time where you need to develop things and do it very quickly, and to throw somebody into the deep end when they've only had a week without the floaties can be a bit much. That being said, most of the starts for Roki Sasaki have been competitive. Outside of maybe a few early on, he was trending in the right direction. I'll agree. Friday night start was not good. It wasn't good. Yeah, he came in. Arizona pounded him early on. I think, there's a mental component too of this, Jake and Kev, where when this guy gets hit early, it takes him out of his confidence and takes him out of his rhythm. I think that also factors into it. So yes, the fastball is a concern, but there's all these other components that I think can make or break Roki Sasaki. And the fact of the matter is, because Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow, I know we're going to get to that, have been injured, you don't have the luxury of sending this kid down to the minors to work on some things, to maybe try different mechanics and different techniques in order to get that fastball back into a major league form where he's touching 98, 99, 100 more consistently. And like you said, Jake, commanding it for strikes. I don't care what you can throw. Can you throw it for strikes? Can you place it where you want to place it? Can you get ahead of hitters? And we have not seen that from Roki Sasaki. And that's, I think, a concern. But I think the fact that most of his starts have been competitive without a good fastball, I guess it's the glass half full versus half empty mentality.
Yeah, and I think that, as we've seen with a couple of other examples of this where, and I'm guilty of it, if you looked at, let's say, Andy Pages's first couple of weeks of the season, you'd say this guy is a scrub and he should not be on a major league roster. Admittedly, my problems with him were more defensive oriented than offensive oriented. But then you look at what happened and he kind of turned it around and caught fire. I really think that Roki has the stuff to, at any point, just go on a tear and start dominating hitters like we know that he's capable of. But I also wonder, and I'm not saying this from any sort of like knowledge or whatever, but I just had the thought of maybe they're telling him not to throw his fastball as hard as he can because of all of the injury problems that this team has. And they're trying to protect him as much as they can. The problem, like you said, Chris, is that the Dodgers need Roki Sasaki more than maybe they thought that they would. With Glasnow and Snell not even available right now, the Dodgers were counting on both of them, but at least one of them to make a start every fifth day, and that's not happening. And you've got Tony Gonsolin, who I'd love to get to in a minute because he's been stellar. But the good starting pitching is so few and far between that I think they're slow playing him right now. And to me, I'm not that worried. Also, it's a minor concern when the Dodgers have the best record in baseball. So, I mean,
we're nitpicking.
You know what I mean? Exactly. We're nitpicking because we know where the flaws could potentially lie in this playoff team. But right now, I'm not worried at all.
Yeah, I what would you guys say? 8 starts he's made at the major league level?
Yes.
And how many of them would you actually say have been really competitive? I'd say about 5, maybe 6.
Really competitive, like maybe half of them.
Okay, so 4 to 5. So and even in the ones where they've lost, right? Outside of the other night, that was probably his worst start ever. I would say the other night, even worse than that Detroit start.
No, the worst start was when he went. What did he get? 6 outs.
Oh yeah, well yeah, that was the Detroit start
against Detroit. It was
that was Detroit. Yeah, that's what I mean.
He got 5 outs actually.
This start was actually worse. No Ks. They pounded him, and the walks started to creep their head.
Yeah, I mean he's averaging like 2 to 3 walks a start. I mean that's just not what you want.
No, it's not. But it's also not totally unrealistic for a 23-year-old rookie to struggle with base on balls. Remember, that was a problem with Clayton Kershaw the first 3 years of his career. I'm not trying to make a comparison here, but I remember that was one of the big flaws of Clayton Kershaw was he sometimes would walk guys a lot. He wasn't exactly super efficient.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to Roki Sasaki's stats as a whole, they're just not that impressive. The 8 starts, as I mentioned, 4.72 ERA in that stretch. 34 innings, only 24 strikeouts, which is quite alarming. A whip of 1.5. And you guys just mentioned it, 0 strikeouts in that most recent outing. I do have a problem, though, with how they were handling Roki Sasaki in that game against Arizona. I think we got lucky, to be honest, that the offense scored 14 runs because we were up 8-3 at that point when Dave Roberts decided to pull Roki Sasaki a bit prematurely. He was only at 61 pitches, gave up a leadoff walk, and then that's when they decided to go to Anthony Banda, who ultimately gave up the grand slam later in that inning. Mm-hmm. I just don't get the whole approach in that game. If Roki Sasaki is going to only throw 60 pitches, why start him on that day? Why not call up a spot starter if the whole concern here is he's pitching on 5 days rest versus 6 days rest? I just did not understand the way they were handling this. And to be honest, I feel like we're not getting full transparency with how healthy even Roki Sasaki is right now.
I agree with you. And to me, I'd rather have a Roki Sasaki who's kind of struggling maybe a little bit with the strike zone with that kind of lead already in the game than turning to Anthony Banda, who's been a dumpster fire so far this year, and Luis Garcia, who's been a sweat every time he comes into the game. So I would have rather had Sasaki stick around at least a little bit longer, at least to try and see if he could get out of that inning. Unfortunately, Banda came in and just absolutely just blew the game at that point. Yeah. But I do want to make a quick correction because I read the wrong stats for his strikeouts and walks. It's actually worse. It's 22 walks and 24 strikeouts. That's just,
that's Jameis Winston, 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions right there, right, Jake?
Yeah, exactly.
Sasaki has a 6.16 expected ERA because I think a lot of that is Andy Pages bailing him out with his circus catches in there in center field. It's unfortunate the way things are looking out right now. I'm glad we still have about 2/3 of the season to go because if the postseason were to start tomorrow, you can't have Roki Sasaki on that team in any capacity with the way he's been pitching.
Yeah, I just, once again, though, I don't know what your alternatives are. Because these guys, Tyler Glasnow has taken the moniker of street clothes away from the ex-Laker Anthony Davis. That's for sure right now. And now Blake Snell, I mean, it's almost looking like the Dodgers were swindled out of that. You don't have many other good alternatives right now. You just don't. Thank goodness Dustin May has been good. Thank goodness Yoshinobu Yamamoto has been good. Thank God. Thank Tony Gonsolin has really hit the ground running because you don't know how these guys are going to look after not pitching in a major league game for as long as they have. So you have gotten some really good starts. And even Landon Knack, Matt Sauer, the last few times out, those guys have been good. Your bullpen has been pretty, outside of Anthony Banda, have all been pretty rock solid for the most part, right? Kirby Yates, okay, Tanner Scott here and there, but ultimately the bullpen I'd say is really solid. So, but the fact is that we're in this Groundhog Day, situation where the starting pitching cannot stay healthy. So you need to throw these guys out there. You need to figure out what's wrong with them so that they could, at the very least, guys, 5 to 6 innings, 4 runs or less. That's all you're asking for from Sasaki and some of these other guys on the back end of your rotation until the cavalry returns, which who knows when the hell that'll be.
Yeah, right now it's availability over execution at this point. We need bodies that can wear the uniform and that can pitch. What you get out of them is what you get out of them. But we're in this situation every season, it seems. Just the starting rotation just cannot survive a month of baseball. It is laughable at this point. And the fact that the Dodgers are actually able to maintain this level of success without a good starting rotation is kind of shocking. Right. Not to mention the fact that they've got a ton of arms that they need out of the bullpen not available to them. Right. So to me, it's like kind of remarkable what they've been able to do. Not a sustainable thing, but it is quite laughable that we cannot see what kind of team we have a month or two into the season.
Hit that like button for those watching right now. If you've got questions for us, we'll take some questions. Just make sure to make it noticeable. And if you're new to the program, hit that subscribe button and turn those notifications on so you never miss a live show. So this series as a whole, 2-2 split. I'll take it. Dodgers were in Arizona. They had a couple stinkers, but the offense really showed up. That May 9th game that we've been talking about with Sasaki was like the game of the year for the Dodgers. The back and forth with the offense, the 14-11 final score. Shohei Ohtani capping off a 6-run ninth inning, getting that 3-run home run off Ryan Thompson and firing back at Gurriel, who earlier in the game taunted the Dodgers with the hands up in the air thing. Shohei Ohtani mocks him right back. And you can just tell every time Shohei Ohtani does these big moments and these celebrations, he does it with class. It was like a classy clap back. You just never saw him do this with the Angels. And he had an incredible series. The GOAT. Freddie Freeman was on fire as well against Arizona. He went 7 for 15 with a home run, 4 RBIs on the season. Now Freddie Freeman's hitting 376 with a 1,171 OPS, 215 weighted runs created plus, 9 home runs, 33 RBIs. I know Pete Alonso's in the mix with his incredible season, but it feels like a 3-horse race right now for MVP between Alonso, Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani. And I think the most impressive of those 3, given the circumstances, has to be Freddie Freeman because he missed a handful of games with the ankle injury, had the offseason surgeries, and here he is surging at the ripe age of 35. And he looks like the best hitter in the National League.
I made this comparison when I was watching the game with my dad and my brother. Freddie Freeman reminds me of like Tony Gwynn, but like with power. Like his ability to handle the bat and put the ball wherever he wants to and come through in the clutch the way he does is remarkable. He is one of the best hitters I've ever seen as a baseball fan. Not to mention he's got the pop. He's got the run production, which, Tony didn't really have that much power in his game, but just his ability to shorten up, handle the bat. I asked the question how the Dodgers are able to survive without a starting rotation. I mean, it's this offense really. Yeah. And not to mention they don't have Teo in there. They don't have Edman in there. These guys are stepping up and carrying, Freddie Freeman being one of them. Shohei Ohtani, I want to touch on a little bit because you mentioned, Kevin, you didn't really see this stuff with the Angels. I was going to make that point too, because he didn't really feel like he could, I don't think, be himself because they weren't winning games. So he was doing remarkable things, but it was not really leading to anything. He's doing things that matter in Los Angeles. He already has an MVP, he already has a World Series ring. He's got that swagger. And to me, him joining in the fun about the Gurriel celebration the way he did, fucking love that. I want more of that. I feel like him and Hae-Sung Kim, they got this swagger about them that I just love a part of this team. It gives this team an identity. Kevin, we've talked about this for a few years when the Dodgers were kind of, not really coming alive in the postseason. They get knocked out by the Padres. They get knocked out by the Diamondbacks. And the one thing that we're complaining about is like, there's just it doesn't feel like there's any heart here. There's no swagger. There's no
the sleepy Trey Turners.
Yeah. Sleepy and just kind of, feeling like they can just get by on their laurels. That's not what I'm seeing from this team right now. That's why they're winning games. Not to mention, I'll say, even though Max Muncy has been struggling, he did tie that game at 11 with a key base hit that led to the Ohtani eventual 3-run blast.
Yeah, all great points. By the way, shout out to Freddie Freeman, National League Player of the Week, for just a brilliant road trip that he put together, particularly like you guys said, that 4-game set in Arizona. He's just been outstanding, and it was funny was he was slow out of the gate. He had the re-aggravation of the ankle injury, slipping in the shower, the kind of injuries that we joke about that these guys hurt themselves sometimes, but he's been able to rally through that. And he's, almost looked like what ankle injury, right? He's been fantastic. But yeah, you're right, Jake. And I think that's the one thing too, that no one's really been talking about with this Dodger team. which is sort of unbecoming of a defending champion, especially during the regular season, is the fight back, is the comeback mode, is the fact that you're able, and we've seen that so often through the first, 6-7 weeks of the season. How many times has this team been down in the game and then all of a sudden storm back or put together a late comeback or give away a lead and be able to rally late? Tommy Edman, the big 2-run walk-off single against the Marlins in that first of the 3-game set back at Dodger Stadium. So that's the one thing I think that has allowed them to not only stay afloat with all the injuries to the rotation, but also to thrive, because you have the ability to come back. And we saw that the other night. They had Kevin Ginkel marked, and they were eventually able to unload on Ryan Thompson. Why Torey Lovello brought in a sidearm right-hander instead of like a Joe Manaply or somebody like another lefty to face Ohtani is beyond me. But hey, it worked out in the Dodger favor. So the offense has found a way to get into a rhythm on this road trip. That was sort of a problem in the early part of the season. Remember that road trip they had in Washington and Philadelphia? They couldn't hit in any of those 6 games. This 10-game set, talk about the level of competition or what. The fact that they were able to put up triple digits a few different times on this road trip and end up going 6-4 was impressive. I even said if they can come back 6-4 off this road trip, I think that's going to be a good one.
That's what they did, 6-4. I'll take it. Speaking of Kevin Ginkel, who got rocked in that 9th inning, karma to Kevin Ginkel and his 15.43 ERA now on the season. This was the guy in the offseason when he was on foul territory, was quoted saying, every time we play the Dodgers, we feel that we can beat them. Well, you got rocked, buddy. So that quote gets to live with infamy with you for now. We'll see what happens if the Dodgers and Arizona meet in the playoffs, which I think is going to happen. I think the Diamondbacks will get hotter and healthier later on in the season, and we might see a Dodgers D-backs NLDS, unfortunately. But
by the way, Ketel Marte absolutely destroys us, and he was amazing in that series. So yeah, I'm with you. It feels like a collision course is occurring.
Yeah, and they got a nice team. They got a really nice team, Arizona. They're slow out of the gate, like you were saying, Kev. I'm sorry. Continue.
So what I was going to say to kind of conclude how awesome Freddie Freeman is, since 2010, there has pretty much been 2 first basemen that have kind of run Major League Baseball with their talents. And for the longest time, I had Paul Goldschmidt ahead of Freddie Freeman. But with what Freddie Freeman is now doing in the later years of his career, I think I have to give Freddie Freeman and not even a slight edge, like a decent edge now over Goldschmidt of who's the best first baseman of their era. I mean, 2 World Series titles, and of course the World Series MVP for Freddie Freeman, and just the monster season he's having now in the last few years with the Dodgers. I think it's a kind of a no-brainer now.
Yeah, the Goldschmidt has an MVP, right?
He did
like a regular season
with the Cardinals.
2022.
Right. So yeah, I'm with you. And do they both have Gold Gloves?
Probably.
I think they do.
Yeah.
And he's having a renaissance season in New York, by the way. Shout out to Goldschmidt. He's on my fantasy team. He's been killing it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I have to agree with Kevin. I don't think it's like a no brainer in the sense. I feel like it's still it could be a debate because they are 2 excellent, exceptional first basemen, but. Mm-hmm. Having watched Freddie, day in and day out, and just his clutch factor, the grand slam on the World Series. I mean, he just is everything you want in a leader and first baseman. So yeah, I would give the edge to Freddie.
No doubt.
Let's jump into a little bit of who's hot, who's not. So this is kind of your opportunity to talk about some Dodgers that I know are on your mind, whether it's in a positive light or a negative light. So we'll start with a question from the chat coming from Michael Carrillo. How much more time are you giving Michael Conforto?
I mean, like I've said, I will give him. I mean, not that it's up to me, but if it was, I would be giving him as much rope as humanly possible. The Dodgers have the best record in baseball. They can afford to let guys figure it out. And it seems like Dave Roberts is really, putting all his eggs in that basket and saying, we believe in you. We know you're better than this, but it is very concerning. We've talked about Conforto, not just the strikeouts, but it's the rally killing double plays that are just the most headache inducing. not to mention just the kind of a below average defense out there. So there's really not anything he's doing right now that is contributing to this team. And it's got to be frustrating for him. I know it's frustrating for us to watch, but the Dodgers are winning games and they're staying afloat atop this very like stacked NL West. And so to me, I'm giving him as much time as humanly possible, until at least until the trade deadline, to where maybe you reassess and you add a bat that you need in the outfield.
Yeah, I have to agree. And here's the other thing too. Teoscar Hernandez is hurt. Tommy Edman is hurt. So you don't really have a ton of other great options out there unless you want to try to, take a chance and call up a guy like Joshua DePaula or another one of the good, minor league outfielders. And even then, there's no guarantees those guys are going to come up and all of a sudden start hitting 400 or whatever they're doing down in the minor leagues. So at this point, you trust that a 10-year vet like Michael Conforto, once considered one of the prized pieces of the New York Mets organization, who's actually, outside of the injuries, has had a pretty solid career. You want to see, can this guy get out of this? We've seen this before where guys have just been absolute train wrecks, not just on the Dodgers, but in other teams. And then all of a sudden, they start finding their strokes. They start finding themselves at the plate. He went 3 for 10 in this series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. So that's progress. To quote, Michael J. Fox from Back to the Future, vote for Mayor Red Thomas. Progress is his middle name. And sometimes you have to take those small victory laps. I equate it to a basketball player. See the ball go through the hoop, a free throw, a layup, something like that. That's all it takes sometimes to kind of get the ball rolling. I'm not saying he's going to go, start batting 400 or 350 the next, week and a half. But in a time when it's still early in the season, you're still winning games at a high clip, and the trade deadline's not for another, 2.5 months away. And one of your top all-star outfielders is on the injured list. You might as well keep throwing him out there and see if he could get himself out of this funk. Because what are your alternatives? There aren't any good ones.
I think Chris covered pretty much everything I was going to say. The injuries to Teoscar and Edman kind of give the Dodgers an excuse to continue to throw Conforto out there. I mean, at least you give him till the very start of June. Then you start to make some considerations of maybe giving a guy like Kim more playing time, because let's be real, James Outman is not really seizing the opportunity right now. He's struggling out there. He's got a lot of strikeouts, which seems to be his specialty, unfortunately. So I'm going to give you guys now the opportunity to pick a Dodgers player you wanted to focus on. I heard Tony Gonsolin earlier. Maybe that's who Jake wants to talk about. So floor is whoever wants to speak first.
Yeah, let's talk about Tony Gonsolin. I have been very, very impressed with his first 3 starts coming back from injury. I wanted to see what it would look like if he faced a team that wasn't the Marlins, because that is not really a test. It's a test of how you look and how your stuff looks, but not necessarily how good you are. And after his start against the Diamondbacks yesterday, he went 5 innings, no runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. He's pitched 5 innings in all 3 of his starts so far. His command looks really good. He's getting a lot of swing and miss. In fact, in his first 2 starts against Miami, his first start, he had 9 strikeouts. In the second start, he had 8 strikeouts. You don't really see a lot of that from Tony Gonsolin. You see a lot of just, efficient pitching, a lot of quality starts, but the strikeout stuff is very, very encouraging. Also super happy that he decided to shave his head, because that look was terrible. Now, the next thing he needs to do, if his good pitching fortune somehow doesn't continue, is to shape that beard a little bit. It looks terrible. It looks dirty, but if he's continuing to pitch the way he does, I don't really care how he looks, but I'm very glad to see that he's healthy and that he's in the starting rotation. So super excited.
And the big thing with Tony Gonsolin, and thanks to the Tommy John surgery, is his velocity is back. He's topping out near 96 miles per hour now with his fastball at times. In 2023, when he was kind of dealing with all those injuries, he was throwing like 91 to 93 miles per hour and was getting hit pretty hard. But like Jake just mentioned, that start against Arizona was kind of like a big prove it effort. I don't care about him doing well against the Marlins because it's the Marlins, but we see how dynamic of an offense Arizona has, and he kept them in check. And I like that he's got the strikeouts going for him right now, the 21 Ks over 16 innings and ERA under 3. So 3 starts in, but Tony Gonsolin's looking pretty sharp out there.
Yeah, and one of the ones I want to focus on, because I think we've gotten negative enough, and we mentioned him early on, part of that class of 2019 for the Dodgers is Dustin May. I've really been happy to see what he's been doing. I know the stats don't pop out at you. What is he, 1-3 now? On the season, but ultimately for a guy that hadn't pitched in a long time, I think most of his starts have been competitive. The problem is he's just not getting much run support out there, especially the last 2 outings against Atlanta and against Arizona more recently. So really like what I've seen from Dustin May for a guy that hadn't pitched since May of 2023. We're talking almost 2 calendar years, guys. 2 calendar years. That's a lot. For all the injuries, the elbow and the esophagus where he almost died on choking on a piece of lettuce. I don't know how the hell that happened, but these freak occurrences have been a problem with the Dodgers. It seems like who's slipping in the shower, who's falling off a chair, anything like that. But no, I really like what I've seen from Dustin May. And I think the numbers are going to continue to get better. Give him a little bit more run support, but I like what I've seen. And like you said, Jake, what's the best kind of ability sometimes? It's availability. Chaz Palminteri, Bronxdale. That's why I live here. Availability.
I got a good one for everyone.
So Dustin May's been really good. I like it I like what he's been able to do.
Here's a good one for who's hot right now that no one's talking about. Tanner Scott.
Yes.
Dive into Tanner Scott. He's really figured things out. Over his last 7 games, he's gone 6 2/3 innings, no runs allowed, 8 strikeouts, a .30 whip in that stretch. But zooming out on his season as a whole right now, he's got a 1.83 ERA, which I think anyone will take. His whip right now is on a pace which would be the lowest ever for him to finish a season. Just a .763 whip is microscopic, and a huge stat that just jumps out to me, a 19 to 1 strikeout to walk ratio, which means he's walking basically nobody. He's got command of his pitches, and he is just looking like the guy they paid all that money to. Tanner Scott has looked really good for the Dodgers.
I was actually going to go with that one, Kev. I'm glad I didn't. So I didn't have to take any of your ideas. Go ahead, Jake.
And thank God. I mean, honestly, like with Trinan going down, we know Kopech made a rehab outing, so that's good. I mean, Evan Phillips going down, Brusdar Graterol, is he even on the team anymore? You've got all these guys that are injured, that are high leverage relievers, and to be able to turn to a guy like Tanner Scott at the end of games has been so huge for this team. And yeah, I'm with Kevin. I've been very impressed how he's turned it around.
For sure. Some quick questions here from the chat. Roy Estrada, what's the status with Henriquez and Graterol? Well, Henriquez was put on the 60 DIL with the foot injury, and I think he's starting to slowly ramp it up. I don't expect him to be a factor in the first half. Brusdar Graterol, I haven't really heard anything with him. Honestly, I don't even know if he'll pitch for the Dodgers this season. It feels like that shoulder surgery coming back in August seems a little rather optimistic. Plus, it's the Dodgers. No one ever comes back early, so we'll see with that. Crash asking, what was the injury rate when Honeycutt was the pitching coach?
I don't know what the rate was, but I get what he's getting at, which is that it definitely felt like the Dodgers pitchers were healthier under Honeycutt, but I don't know how you could even like attribute that, or because there's so many other factors, right? There's so many other factors. And it varies from individual to individual, but it is very distressing, the fact that they can't keep anybody healthy. And even Blake Snell, who has a reputation for being very, very durable. And he got 2 or 3 starts into the season wearing a Dodgers uniform, and all of a sudden his arm's fallen off. So I don't understand what the deal is. We've never been able to get a straight answer from anybody about why this happens. And I don't know if this happens at such an alarming rate on any other franchise. Like, I don't follow all the other franchises that closely, but it just seems to me that the Dodgers just have a glaring problem here. And I don't know what the solution is because I don't really know what the problem is. We know what the result is, but we don't know what's causing that. So it's very, very confusing.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, I know this question's been brought up to Andrew Friedman and the rest of the guys in the organization. They don't know either. And I hope they're studying this because this is not a 2 or 3 year thing. I know it's been amplified over the last 2 or 3 years. This has been going on consistently outside of the COVID season in 2020. It's actually been going on since about 2018. If you really dissect it, there have been a plethora of injuries that really started in 2017, 2018. And it's really gotten worse over the last 3-4 seasons now. And, you know, the fact that even a guy like Blake Snell, who, like you said, Jake, has a reputation of being durable, not really a high velo guy, more of a, you know, somebody who's going to, you know, get you out on the slider, the curveball, the changeup, that kind of thing. And that's really disconcerting right now. And even a guy like Tyler Glasnow, like, I don't know what's wrong with these guys that they just cannot keep themselves healthy. They don't know the problem. The Dodgers don't know the problem. And now Glasnow and Snell are meeting with Dr. Neil Elitroch. And I'm like, if there's nothing structurally wrong with your shoulder, why the hell do you have to meet with the surgeon for?
Yeah,
that's really a problem.
So you tied me right into that. And then we're going to get into our comedy draft, looks like. So with Blake Snell visiting Dr. Neil Elitroch and the 2 setbacks, I wanted to get your guys' concern level on a scale of 1 to 10 right now of how let's go with how pessimistic are you with Blake Snell pitching for the Dodgers? If not at all this season, maybe like he has to come back late in the season. How pessimistic are you right now with 10 being high?
For me, it's a 10. I have zero faith that they're going to be able to get him back for the postseason. And if he is, great. I'll eat my words. I have no problem doing that. I do that all the time. But I just don't trust it. I don't. They weren't able to get Glasnow back and ready for the postseason last year. Who knows if he's coming back? Blake Snell, like, this is the path that we see all the time with these pitching injuries with the Dodgers. They start out as something like, oh, glad we got ahead of it. We're taking precautions. We don't think it's going to be that bad. And it always gets fucking worse. Yeah. Every week, every single week, it gets worse. Every week there's a setback. It is insane. I don't trust it at all. My pessimism level is at a 10 because I've seen this movie before. And unless I see Blake Snell starting game 1 of a playoff game, I'm not going to believe it.
Did we just get Jason Schmidt?
We might have. I don't know. But it does not look promising to me.
Giants pitcher has pretty good season, comes to the Dodgers, immediately their shoulder blows out.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Or you could add Scott Kazmir and Brandon McCarthy, which is more on Andrew Friedman's watch. You could throw those guys on there as well. I agree with you, Jake. It's always like, oh, it's precautionary, it's this and that. And then, you know, I go back to the conversation I had with Vassay last year when I called in on the Dodger show, and he got like almost offended that I called out the Dodger training staff. And I'm like, well, if it's not the training staff, okay, some of it might be down at the minor league levels, what pitchers are being shown. But now when it's veteran pitchers, who's to blame there? You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to look into these things a little bit. And the fact of the matter is, this isn't a 1-year thing. This has been happening. I told him this on the show. This has been a problem over the last 4 or 5 years, but you don't want to hear that. Okay, fine. Don't hear it. But, you know, don't start crying when it's like, well, you know, the Dodgers can't stay healthy with, you know, Snell and Glasnow or anything with that freaking high-pitched, stupid voice he's got sometimes. But, you know, and I like Vassay, but I'm just saying, I got a little upset that night with him. This is a problem. And either they're not doing enough on the physical end of it, or these guys are not putting themselves in a position as far as conditioning goes so that they could be available on the mound every 5 days. So there's a few different angles you could look at right now for all of this. So.
All right, so yeah, I'll make this quick. I thought my number was going to be high, but I was at an 8, which I thought was being kind of over dramatic. But hearing you guys
I'm at
at a
an 8
10,
too with Snell.
okay,
Yeah, I'm at an 8 with Snell.
I,
Sorry.
I'm at
not,
10, baby.
I'm not optimistic. This just feels like this is going to end very, very badly for the Dodgers. I'm actually more optimistic that Tyler Glasnow is going to do for them. He's going to do more for the Dodgers this season at this rate than how it's going with Blake Snell. The fact that we haven't gotten any news yet makes me even more concerned that this is going to go south really quick, and we're going to get the inevitable passive tweet just from the Dodgers saying Blake Snell has undergone successful arthroscopic shoulder surgery, and he'll be ready for spring training in 2026. Like I smell that coming right now, and I'm dreading it. Ohtani, another update with him. I think I've been kind of ahead of the curve on this one. I'd never bought into these reports. He was coming back in May, and now it's been confirmed. He won't even be back until around the All-Star break, which even that seems optimistic. Like he's not pitching any type of simulated game. So it's like you got Tyler Glasnow, Shohei Ohtani, Blake Snell, all in the IL technically in the pitching category. You're three big horses, and you're leaning on Yoshinobu Yamamoto right now. Like Jake was talking about earlier, that's just tragic. The amount of money they're investing, and they're not getting anything out of it.
Literally nothing.
So on a more lighter note, and it's Dennis Gonzalez's question, and then we'll do this draft. What is everyone's excitement level for Clayton Kershaw returning? And I'll add to that, what are your expectations kind of the first month with Kershaw?
I'm really excited. I love Clayton Kershaw, one of my favorite players ever. And the fact that he is working himself back into shape to be able to pitch for this team when they actually need him is huge. And to me, it would have been nice had they had some sort of full starting rotation, able to add Kershaw into the mix as a complementary piece. But like with Tony Gonsolin, we need Clayton Kershaw. There was a highlight I saw the other day. Kershaw was pitching in a rehab start down in AAA, and he bolted off the mound towards the third base line and just threw this off balance, looked like a nonchalant throw, but it was on target to nail the runner at first. I think he's ready. Kershaw knows himself better than anybody, and he said that he's going to hang it up once he feels like he can't get anybody out anymore. And I think he still feels like he can get guys out. I'm super pumped.
For sure. And there were two things I wanted to mention. One, this injury wasn't shoulder related. It wasn't elbow related. This was all lower body. This was the toe. This was the foot, whatever it was.
Also wasn't a back issue.
And it wasn't a back issue. Yeah, good point. And it was the knee. I think he had a torn meniscus in his knee. So everything was lower body, which means that the shoulder was actually able to rest for the offseason and most of this year. So he was actually able to ramp up a little bit quicker, I think, because there wasn't as many setbacks, because this wasn't the same injury that he had in 2023. So that's one thing I wanted to point out. So I'm not too surprised that he's able, because if you recall, his starts last year may not have been overpowering, but they were competitive. That's all you want from starting pitchers, guys. Competitive starts. Give us a chance to beat the other team. Second, I also think he's trying to go out similar to how Adam Wainwright went out with the St. Louis Cardinals, where Waino was actually still going out there every 5 days, giving the Cardinals not great starts, but competitive starts. And even though he could have gone out with the ring, I think he wants to be there on the mound in October, being an actual part of any sort of Dodger success. And I think that's really what it comes down to. The way we saw with Adam Wainwright and Yadier Molina and others in the last few years. So I think that's why he's still going out there, even though he's got nothing else to prove at this point. He's won everything you could imagine, including 2 World Series championships. But he wants to, I think, feel like I've been a part of this, which is something I don't think he felt last year. I'm not Clayton Kershaw, obviously, but that's what I think his mindset is at.
So I think with Kershaw, they're going to be pretty tight on his pitch count, at least to start. So I think his first start will be against the Angels on May 18th. That's a cupcake matchup. Good one to come back. But then it's going to get tough. He's going to probably pitch at the Mets. He's probably going to pitch versus the Yankees. Then maybe a passable game against the Cardinals. I don't know if he'll avoid the Padres, but I feel like a team like the Padres, because they're going to face the Padres a lot in June, that's a team that I think is going to light him up. So I think we're going to see some highs, some lows with Kershaw. The fastball velocity, how is that going to play a factor? Will it be able to deceive hitters when he throws the slider, or are they just going to sit on the slider first pitch and they're going to whack it out of the yard for a home run, a la Manny Machado? So we'll wait and see. My expectations are he'll probably have like a high 3, maybe low 4 ERA to come out of the gates. And I'm not expecting Cy Young Kershaw to start.
One more point. 2025 Clayton Kershaw equals, with the question mark at the end, 2018 Rich Hill.
Okay.
I'll take it.
All right, let's get into this. This was my idea. I've been sitting on this for like a month or two now. I've been watching some comedies and it made me nostalgic. So I wanted to tie this into the incline. So here we go. You can participate in the chat and drop your favorite comedies. The subject matter is comedies of the 21st century snake draft. I'm going to have the first overall pick. You guys can have second or third. I don't care who goes next. You guys can work that on a second. But
It's rigged.
Eligibility is 2000 or to present, anytime in that span. So anything before that doesn't count. So I'll have the first pick, then it'll snake to me. I'll have the sixth pick, and so forth and so on. So
Jake,
you guys have any questions?
Jake, you could take 2. Go ahead.
Any other questions? Or are we
No,
ready?
that's
No.
All right. So I'm taking with the first overall pick, The Hangover. I thought The Hangover changed comedies of its particular year. Zach Galifianakis, Bradley Cooper, Ed Helms all became superstars because of The Hangover. It was so edgy, so raunchy. The amount of laugh out loud moments, it's just Ken Jeong, iconic. The Hangover goes first to me.
That was number 1 on my board too. I love The Hangover so much. I saw it a bunch of times in theaters. But I'm going to go with my number 2 pick, which is Superbad. That is my number 1 overall pick. I just think in terms of ensemble comedies, there isn't an unfunny scene in the movie. The cast is perfect. Jonah Hill and Michael Cera are perfect together and hysterical. And I could watch that movie over and over again. You know, Judd Apatow had a run there in the early 2000s. So
man, oh man,
that was going to be like my next pick. So what a pick!
That really good start, fellas. I gotta go. You gotta call me Dragon. You gotta call me Nighthawk. I gotta go with Step Brothers, baby. Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly, with a great supporting cast with Mary Steenburgen, Adam Scott, the great Richard Jenkins. That was awesome. Listen, guys, it's the freaking Catalina wine mixer. You know, when I grow up, I wanted to be a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I would go to medical school, I would practice, and I would come back to it.
Yeah.
Exceptional movie. So quotable. Amazing. What's this guy's deal? I don't know, son. So many great scenes. So I got to go with Step Brothers. It's not my number 1 pick. So
I too like Rob Reiner movies.
What's your next one? It goes back to you, Chris. You get back to
me.
that.
Ooh, it's a good one. I got to go with, and I'm just going to quote it. You guys should know what I mean. We're going streaking. Sorry.
Wow.
We're going streaking through the quad and into the Jason. Come on, everybody.
Old school.
Yes,
It's
sir.
on my list.
Nice.
Yes,
okay. I'm glad this one fell to me because it is one of my favorites ever. I'm going with Anchorman. Ron Burgundy.
Freaking knew that was about to happen.
Yeah, I mean, as a former reporter, it is just I love it. It's one of the funniest movies ever. One of the most quotable movies ever. Milk was a bad choice. I say that all the time. It's just the best.
All right. Well, those were some of my big ones, but I got one left at least. Borat. That movie changed my life. I will say. I don't think any movie made me more uncomfortable, but laugh hysterically like Borat did. I got to go Borat.
Nice. And do you go again?
Yep. And then back to that for my back-to-backs. I don't know if either of you guys are going to take this one. I might leave it. All right. So I'll take this one just to be safe. Wedding Crashers.
Good one.
That's on my list. That was one on my list. Okay. This is fun because I've got my pick here and I don't know which one to go with. Okay, I'm gonna go with Napoleon Dynamite. I just think in Kevin talked about The Hangover being like a game changer. Napoleon Dynamite was a game changer for kind of unheard of indie films that just took off like wildfire. It was like you weren't cool unless you saw Napoleon Dynamite, and you had to see it in like kind of off the beaten path theaters. And another really quotable movie, and something that made these guys made John Heder like relevant. I mean, it led to the ice skating movie. I can't remember the name of it.
Blades of Glory.
Blades of Glory. I mean, it just led to all these different movies for him, and it's just it's a cultural thing with Napoleon Dynamite. So I'm going to go with that.
Good one. So now it's 2 picks for me. Oh, you guys are setting me up with a lot of juicy ones. I got to go with Kelly Clarkson, the 40-year-old virgin, man.
Yes.
How many pots have you smoking? Or you grab a woman's breath and it feels like a bag of sand. Part of that Judd Apatow amazing streak that you were talking about.
Yep.
Jake. You got to go with the 40-year-old virgin, Steve Carell, comedy genius, Seth Rogen, Romany Malco, Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd was awesome in that one. That was great. The other one I got to go with, speaking of Seth Rogen, I got to go with Knocked Up. Knocked Up was hilarious. Jonah Hill was on that one. Jason Segel, Katherine Heigl I thought was really good. Paul Rudd again. So he's just like, what is this? Our fantasy baseball draft. I told you all about this. Just so many great scenes in that one. Hey, Pete, don't let the door hit you in the vagina on the way out. So and those aren't even the best parts, but those are the ones that are quotable. So,
yes.
40-year-old virgin, Knocked Up. Back to you. I think it's Jake, right?
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go with another one of my favorite comedies. You can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. I'm going with Dodgeball. My company has shareholders. Your company doesn't even have cup holders. Why would I want cup holders? It's just perfect. I mean, another one that is just like, all the lines from it. And, just everybody in that movie was incredible.
Yeah.
It's a good one. So we're about to wrap this up. Then we'll talk some Kyle Tucker, and Jake might have to get on out of here. But my last 2, I'll make this quick. I'm going Zoolander.
Nice.
And I'm going Tropic Thunder.
Nice.
Good ones.
Nice.
Dude.
What do you mean them people? Or what do you mean?
What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you
people? Yeah, I mean, like some of these comedies in the early 2000s, like you couldn't get away with jokes like that or any of these jokes that they tell. I think that's one of the reasons why we're naming so many comedies that are in the early part of this era and not, ones that were like 2015 and on, so I think there's that sweet spot, the 2000 to 2010 sweet spot. But good choices, Kevin. Okay. My final pick. And I knew none of you were going to choose this, but that's why I waited till the end. But I feel like if we had some women on this podcast, they would choose this. It would be on their list. I'm going with Mean Girls. And the reason I'm going with Mean Girls is not only quotable up the wazoo, but it is one of the best, maybe the best, like SNL, like put together, produced movies. It's a Lorne Michaels movie. Tina Fey wrote it. Yep. Tim Meadows. I mean, everybody, there's so many different SNL people that were involved in this, and just a great freaking movie. It's one of the most rewatchable movies out there. And I'm going Mean Girls to round it out.
My last pick, you know what? It could even fall into the category of a rom-com, but so many quotable parts. I got to go with Along Came Polly. I'm a big Ben Stiller fan. Love Philip Seymour Hoffman in that. Thank you, Stanley.
It's where I learned what the term shart meant.
Yeah, exactly. Let it rain. Old school. Yeah, I mean, Philip Seymour Hoffman was great. Ben Stiller was awesome in that one too. I thought Jennifer Aniston and him had great chemistry. Alec Baldwin, as in this whole Michigas we call the insurance business. Mazel, good things. Yeah, no, I so many great characters in that. I got to go with Along Came Polly. But there are some good honorable mentions on that.
Did Ben Stiller win for most comedy movies just sniped right now? Like
Maybe.
I got 2 of them. I know Jake got Dodgeball. And
Dodgeball, yeah.
Polly. That's 4.
Yeah.
Good job, Ben Stiller. See, Heavyweights mentioned by Eric Flores. That was a silly one.
But that was more in the 90s. See, that was on my list too, but that was more in the 90s.
All right. We got a few minutes left. Jake, you can bounce it whenever you need to. So,
well, can I just make one point before I go?
Yes.
This is one point that I want to make. And like I said, there's not a lot of things you can criticize about this Dodgers team because of their record and where they are in the standings. But please, for the love of God, can we keep Hae-Sung Kim on the roster? Figure out a way to keep him on the roster. And I would even go as far as to say, start him every day. I want to see him in the lineup. He is a difference maker. We do not have another player like him on the roster. He is dynamic. He's batting 9th in the order. He flips that lineup over. He's got speed up the wazoo. He can steal bases. He can get on base in a myriad of different ways. I just think, and his defense is outstanding. I just think he needs to be on this roster when we get Edman and Teo back. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they've got to figure it out.
Good point.
I'm team Hae-Sung Kim as well. He's hitting a cool 318. Keep him in that lineup every day. He's an awesome 8 or 9 hole hitter because he just gets on base, adds that speed, and he's a very nice set the table guy for this, superstar named Shohei Ohtani.
All right, fellas. Peace out.
All right.
Thanks, Jake.
Let's get into friend of the show now, Bob Nightingale, who wrote out a pretty interesting article yesterday talking about the Dodgers as usual and linking them to this pretty good hitter out there in Chicago named Kyle Tucker. Basically, what Bob Nightingale wrote is that the Dodgers are not going to let the other 29 teams skate by and kind of cheap out when it comes to Kyle Tucker. The Dodgers are going to be in the mix to drive up that bargaining price like they did with Juan Soto, like they've done with other hitters in the past. And they're going to put in a competitive offer. And that's going to put some pressure on the rest of Major League Baseball to either pay Kyle Tucker or it's going to be another Freddie Freeman situation where they let another superstar or Teoscar Hernandez all-star just fall into the Dodgers' lap. So, Chris, I wanted to ask you, since you're here with me, thoughts on Kyle Tucker as a player overall? Would you be happy if the Dodgers landed a guy like Kyle Tucker? I know it's only May, but where is your head space right now when it comes to Kyle Tucker?
Well, I'll go back to one of the last podcasts I was on with you and Jake back in March. And I remember the topic was potential MVP candidates in the NL. And of course we were talking about the MV3 of the Dodgers. You brought up a couple other names, but I was like, I'm intrigued by Kyle Tucker this year because he has always played he's got that MVP caliber numbers that he's been putting up with Houston. And I just wonder how that was going to translate with the Cubs. And he's been tremendous so far in Chicago. It's one of the big reasons why they're, I don't know if they're in first right now in the Central, but if they're certainly one of the top teams there right now. And he's been a big reason for that. He's a good corner outfielder. He's a guy who could anchor the middle of your lineup. And, when you look at the future of the Dodger outfielders, yes, I understand you just re-signed Teoscar Hernandez to that 3-year extension, but there are some question marks. Andy Paz has been playing good, but do you see him as part of that future moving forward? We've seen James Otto Outman, continue to be a problem with his consistency. Hae-Sung Kim is sort of a super utility guy. So you don't really have a lot of great outfielders that for sure over the next 5 to 6 years that are going to be those guys. We hope DePaul is going to be good. We hope Zaire Hope is going to be good. But once again, we can't say for sure. So I think the fact the Dodgers are in the mix, again, just shows we're doing our due diligence. If there's a great player to be had, we're going to throw our hat in the ring. Doesn't mean we're going to get him like Juan Soto, but we would be silly to just say, now we're good. somebody else get him. No, we're going to go out and we're going to do whatever we can do at the very least to drive his price up and to make it hard on these other teams to field competitive teams in addition to signing Kyle Tucker.
Yeah, it'll be a shame if the rest of the league just lets Kyle Tucker go to the Dodgers. Like, that would honestly kind of be a war crime. Kyle Tucker to me is a top 5 player in the National League. Thought it was foolish when the Astros decided to trade him, basically kind of not punting away their season, but essentially telling their fans they're not going all in, because I don't think the haul they got back for Kyle Tucker is a win in 2025 type of move, especially when the AL West isn't that competitive of a division, and the AL as a whole isn't really that strong either. So if you have a pretty solid team in the American League, you have a pretty good chance to win the pennant, and the Astros are basically taking a step backwards. But enough about the Astros. I would love to see Kyle Tucker come to the Dodgers. I think he's an elite player. He would be an instant mega upgrade over Michael Conforto, who I think is a one and done. So I think you're looking at a potential outfield of Teoscar, Pages, and Kyle Tucker if that were to happen. Now, I'll put the percentage odds very low right now. I mean, it's so early in the season. A lot could shape out and play completely different. But no, you will hear from me consistently. Kyle Tucker, elite player, Team USA 2023. So King Tuck, you're welcome. You're welcome to come to Los Angeles if that's where your heart is at. Last thing I have, Chris, and then if you have any final thoughts or anything else you want to cover before we get on out of here, the last thing on my list is the Dodgers made a trade today. Not a big needle mover by any means, but they just worked out a deal earlier this afternoon to acquire a new outfielder. But it's someone I've never heard of. He was DFA'd by the Toronto Blue Jays, I believe, and they acquired him. I think it was just for straight up cash considerations, but Steward Berroa. Come on down. You are a Los Angeles Dodger now. Steward Berroa is a lifetime 189 hitter. He only has 37 at-bats with 1 RBI. In the minors this season, he was not really having that impressive of a year in AAA. He was hitting 195 with a 501 OPS, no home runs, 4 RBIs. Last season, he played all year in AAA, and he hit 281 with an 825 OPS, 10 home runs, 34 stolen bases. So he's a speed guy. I can see his career high down in AA, it looks like, was 58 stolen bases. That was a few years ago. I don't know what the Dodgers see in this guy. More often than not, they nail it, but this kind of looks like BC's a good reference here. It looks like another Kevin Biggio. I don't know my thoughts right now, but I'm not too high on this one to be quite real.
Yeah, never heard of this guy. Probably won't hear about him very often or very much moving forward. But, this is the kind of move that the Dodgers just tend to make. Like, hey, why not? If this guy's got an element of speed or something that made him successful once upon a time and he's fallen off, let's see if we could put him down in our minor league system and see if we could kind of tap into whatever made him great once upon a time, or at least very good once upon a time. A lot of times it's, an injury or just some sort of flaw that becomes once again, mind over matter. I mentioned that earlier in the show, that it's not always physical with a lot of these guys. I think it's also up here as well. So yeah, it may be nothing. It may be something. Remember Anthony Banda, that last year, I know Banda's struggling this year, but last year, that was not a needle mover either. We didn't know anything about Anthony Banda. Ended up becoming a big part of the bullpen. So I'm not saying this guy Steward, whatever the hell his name is going to be that guy. And especially coming out of a system like Toronto, who apparently that's apparently where hitters go to die, is the Blue Jays organization. That's how bad they are. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I don't think we'll expect anything from it, but why not? If it doesn't cost too much, let's see what we can do with him.
It's a weird add to the 40-man, in my opinion. I expect him to get DFA'd in like 2 weeks when they have to.
Maybe that's what it is then.
Add someone, and maybe they hope he sneaks down and no one claims him. But they've been adding a lot of players recently. Like Nick Senzel is one I'm more intrigued about.
That was a good one.
He's starting to get some at bats down there in AAA. We'll see if he can have a role with the Dodgers. Certainly much more big league experience. And then as Alex Freeland and Dalton Rushing continue to rake down there in AAA, those are some guys to keep your eye out on for potential mid to late season call-ups for the Dodgers. Anything else, Chris, you want to cover before we say adios?
No, I think we covered everything. I mean, look, we could nitpick all day, and clearly, I think the things we just have to watch out for right now is anything on Snell or Glasnow. So that will be very telling over the next few days, because all of the reports about the discomfort, everything's come back structurally clean. So if the MRIs are coming back structurally clean, and I know you mentioned the arthroscopic surgery. But why would you do surgery if it's discomfort and inflammation? Surgery does not help that. You would have to do like what David Price did years ago when they found, what do you call it, the bodies of imbibement or some crap like that in his elbow. Okay, that was an actual surgery. We're removing something that's causing that. If there's nothing there that the MRIs are picking up in either of their shoulders, what are you going to do with surgery? It just
I'm thinking they're going to find something is what I think I'm worried about.
But if these MRIs are coming back clean, Kev, I don't understand what surgeries are going to do then. That's the thing. So whatever. You might be right, and I could be dead wrong on this. I'm just looking at it and obviously I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV. Just on the local cable network. No, just that's the one thing I just want to. I'm a little curious about. So, and like I said, you could be right, I could be wrong. It just seems weird to me. So that's it.
We'll hope for the best with Blake Snell, because the Dodgers are going to need him, no doubt about it. Well, that's it. I mean, the Dodgers next up on the slate, they got a pretty lengthy homestand. They've got a series with the Athletics, who dropped the Oakland officially. They're just the Athletics. It'll be a good bounce back opportunity for Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who kind of got lit up in his most recent outing against the D-backs. I know we didn't really talk about that. Then they've got the Angels, who, for whatever reason, the Angels could be bottom feeders and they'll still play the Dodgers tough. So not expecting that to be an easy series. And then by then we'll be back, but they've got a series with the Diamondbacks at home this time. So a lot of good Dodgers baseball coming up. And just a reminder, I don't even remember if I said this, but we're going to post that snake draft list on X, so you can vote for who did the best draft. You can vote for me, Jake, or Chris, and you'll probably vote for whichever of us picked your favorite movie, but that's how it goes sometimes. Appreciate everyone tuning in, or if you're listening on the audio feed, thank you guys so much for spending this past hour with us on the Incline Dodgers podcast. Rate and review the episode, hit that like button on YouTube, and hit the subscribe button wherever you're at. Have a great rest of your weekend. A second shout out to all the mothers out there. Happy Mother's Day to our female listeners.